So the OnePlus Nord 2 is available from today from 399 quid here in Blighty, and according to OnePlus, this bright blue bugger has absolutely everything that you need, making it a true flagship killer. But is the OnePlus Nord 2 actually all that and a bag of pork scratchings, or should you just hoy your cash at a Poco F3 or a Pixel 4a instead? Well, I've had my SIM inserted inside of that rather attractive chassis for just over a week now, so here's my in-depth OnePlus Nord 2 review. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now first up, 1 week on, I am definitely still a fan of that OnePlus Nord 2 design. Yeah, it's not as lovably compact as the Pixel, but that curvy chassis is comfortable to clutch. And it's also tougher than tackling the Times cryptic crossword after a whole heap of crystal meth. You've got Gorilla Glass 5 slathered all over the front end, plus a pre-installed screen protector as well, and then Gorilla Glass 5 on the back end as well, although the two layers are separated by a simple bit of plastic edging. But thankfully, a full week on, the OnePlus Nord 2 is still looking box fresh, and the good news is that even though there's no official IP rating here, it can definitely cope with a bit of moisture and the odd unexpected thunderstorm. Thanks UK weather. Grey Sierra or Blue Haze are the two colour choices, and this blue model is rather charming while also doing a not terrible job of hiding finger smudges. And while the camera chassis has definitely grown over the previous Nord, it is not to iPhone levels of ridiculousness. And it's great to see OnePlus has restored one of the biggest emissions from the cheaper Nord Core Edition phone. I'm talking about that rather nifty alert slider, which is a great way of just super quickly silencing your phone whenever you need to. And yes, it could definitely do with being slightly stiffer, because I did accidentally nudge it a couple of times when I was trying to slip the OnePlus Nord 2 into my pocket or what have you, but it's definitely a great feature, great to have. Now there's not too much to update as far as OxygenOS goes since my unboxing, except for the fact that Netflix and Disney Plus are now fully supported post-launch as expected. And most of the weird little bugs that I saw during that unboxing have thankfully been squashed now as well. So for instance, if you don't have the always-on ambient display active, well, just a couple of quick taps can now wake up the OnePlus Nord 2 so you can see what's going on. Raise to Wake also now works, although it won't make the OnePlus Nord 2 scan for your face to try and unlock the device. But besides that, no issues with the face unlock, that works well even in ambient light. And the in-display fingerprint sensor is also a winner, very fast and responsive even when your hands are a bit mucky. The only other weird little OxygenOS bug that I noticed in the last few days was when the auto-rotate suddenly decided that it could no longer be buggered to function no matter how much I toggled it on and off. Rotate your own bloody screen, you lazy wang. But of course a hard reboot sorted that little sod right out. And the other good thing about OxygenOS smartphones is the fact you don't get much in the way of crapware pre-installed on there either. OnePlus has chucked a few little bonus apps on top of your usual Android shenanigans, but certainly nothing to the extent of what you find on the likes of a Xiaomi smartphone or an Oppo smartphone, where you've got your LinkedIns, your TikToks, your Booking.coms. You've just got stuff like Phone Clone, which can copy some bits from your old blower for you, and good old weather, of course, which here in the UK seems to predict non-stop apocalyptic rainstorms, which to be fair is usually on the money. Nothing particularly notable was added by the latest version of OxygenOS, but all the classics are still here, including the Zen mode, which can calm you right the f down when things are getting cray-cray by playing peaceful music and sounds while also blocking out the world for a set duration. And to make you feel even more chilled and relaxed, the good news is OnePlus is once again offering 2 years of OS updates and 3 years of security updates with the OnePlus Nord 2 as well, so you're set for a good bit of future-proofing. That's definitely better than what you'll get from a lot of rivals borrowing the likes of Google and Nokia. And if you do want to download a lot of apps, games, media, all that kind of stuff, well, the OnePlus Nord 2 offers a choice of up to 256 gigs of UFS 3.1 storage, but you might want to go high if you're going to download a lot of stuff because you can't expand it later on with micro SD memory cards. There's no support for that whatsoever, so maybe not quite everything you need. I got very few complaints when it comes to that 6.43-inch AMOLED screen, which is bright, bold, and rather bloody brilliant. Visuals are pin sharp courtesy of the Full HD Plus resolution, while colours are proper poppy on the lovable vivid mode, with more natural hues also available on demand. Contrast is sharp with deep blacks and crisp whites, although while the Nord 2 screen is HDR10 certified, Netflix certainly isn't offering HDR support right now. OnePlus has also added an AI color boost and an image sharpener tool to the OnePlus Nord 2 as well, which is supposed to de-shitify any really crappy low-res content, make it look all fresh. But definitely don't expect this to turn any ugly 480p shenanigans on YouTube into glorious HD action. More often than not, I couldn't even tell the difference, and that's before I even started hitting the scotch and going a bit cross-eyed. But even my knackered old peepers could really appreciate that 90Hz refresh rate whenever I was nipping around through the UI or the various menus. And supposedly the OnePlus Nord 2 boasts the smartest auto brightness on any OnePlus handset, but I've got to say, it's actually one of the worst performances I've seen in quite some time. Quite often I'd be sat there in a completely dark room, and for some reason it would max out the brightness and pretty much burn right through my retinas. So overall, I gotta say, it actually seems about as intelligent as an inbred poodle with a really bad glue sniffing habit. Still, the stereo speakers are absolutely fine, and you've got a healthy bit of codec support when you're streaming audio via Bluetooth 5.2. But there's no headphone jack here. Seriously, none. And I looked really, really hard. So everything you need, OnePlus? But hey ho, enough griping. One of the biggest upgrades here versus the original Nord is the performance. What you got running the show is Mediatek's fresh new 6nm Dimensity 1200 AI chipset. It's been custom made just for the OnePlus Nord 2, and it's a bit of a blinder. Everyday running is smoother than a sea lion's scrotum, and no worries if you want to get gaming either. Even memory chugging titles like Genshin Impact work just fine as long as you don't max out the detail settings. You got the occasional little judder here and there during gameplay, but it is perfectly playable. And yes, the OnePlus Nord 2 can get a little bit toasty after a fair bit of play, but you can happily game for an hour or more without any degradation in the performance. You got a 4500 mAh battery packed inside of this thing, and with the default settings and a good bit of 90Hz screen refresh, I found that gave me all day play, no worries at all, generally around 5 to 6 hours of screen on time before I start to get into the serious dregs. And even with pretty much all of the features toggled on, including the always on ambient display, I still found I generally got around sort of 5 hours of screen on time, so really not bad at all. And on top of that, you got that dual battery design, which means that the OnePlus Nord 2 supports the same fantastic Warp Charge 65 tech as the OnePlus 9 flagship smartphone. So yeah, you can expect a full charge of this beast in just around half an hour-ish, which is brilliant for this price point. So let's finish with the optics, and that rear camera setup on the Nord 2 is headlined by a 50 megapixel Sony IMX766 primary sensor with built-in optical image stabilization. That's a different setup to the original OnePlus Nord, of course, and while it's not quite up to the extremely good results you would get from the likes of the Pixel 4a, but then what is, it is still pretty effing good. The usual quad pixel binning shenanigans means you get 12.5 megapixel photos by default, and that is enough detail to keep your pics looking crisp when blown up, although finer detail is often lacking, and in stronger lights you will occasionally see some bleaching, but the Nord 2 often does alright with a bit of contrast for a mid-ranger. That upgraded Dimensity 1200 AI chipset allows the OnePlus Nord 2's camera to detect and differentiate between 22 different subject types. That is, as long as you've actually got the AI mode active in the camera app. And yeah, I did find that this often produced less natural looking results in favour of more vivid pics, but if you're not a fan of that, you can always just knock it off. For living subjects, you can long press the shutter button and burst shot, and then choose your favourite, or let the phone pick for you instead. And this definitely does the job for any less obliging subjects who just won't bloody stand still. I found that indoor and more ambient shots came out well too. The optical image stabilization helps to prevent blurry soft results caused by slight hand tremors, and detail levels are perfectly respectable. Even moving subjects are usually handled pretty well once again. And the portrait mode usually churns out attractive snaps with a gorgeous bit of bokeh action. As for extreme low light, well, the phone's focus still copes, and that nightscape mode can ensure that you get brighter results, so it's well worth a pop, if again unfortunately inferior to that Pixel 4a. The Nord 2 serves up a couple of bonus lenses, including an 8 megapixel ultra-wide angle effort that does a decent job. Colour reproduction is similar, not entirely accurate but not bad. And yes, there's a 2 megapixel mono lens if you want to shoot black and white photos to feel like you're all arty and shit. On the video front, you can't shoot 4K footage at 60 frames per second, but I was happy enough with my 30 FPS home movies. Viewed back on a monitor or a TV, you've got a commendable level of detail packed into every frame. Just don't try and fight the light and you'll get a good overall picture, although colours can once again be somewhat smothered when you're recording outdoors. Image stabilization is good though, even at that Ultra HD level, so you can move and shoot without puke-inducing results. And audio pickup is generally clear from all sides, while wind distortion ain't too bad, so overall, definitely good stuff. And last up, that Nord 2 selfie shooter uses a 32 megapixel IMX615 sensor, and this doesn't quite do skin tones full justice. I swear that even my northern skin isn't this bloody pale all of the time. But it is otherwise fine. Again, it does a good job with portrait shots, and you've got nightscape support for low light snaps if you want to avoid that screen flash shiny face syndrome. So that right there is my full final frank OnePlus Nord 2 review, and I gotta say, if you want to go for that sort of stock-ish Android experience with guaranteed updates for an extra bit of peace of mind and some pretty premium hardware as well, all for a respectable price, then this is pretty stiff competition for that Google Pixel 4a. Sure, the camera isn't as good as the Google Pixel smartphone, but the performance is definitely a step up. So if you want to do lots of gaming on the likes of Genshin Impact, well, job done. So that's what I think anyway, but what do you guys reckon? Have you already purchased yourself a OnePlus Nord 2? It'd be great to hear your initial thoughts down in the comments below. Please do subscribe, ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a fantastic rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you!